Finland is the world's happiest country, according to an annual survey issued this week, placing India at the 133rd spot, which is a drop by 11 places as compared to last year's report. The happiness index also found that Americans were getting less happy even as their country became richer. More in this detailed report.
What makes the world happy? 6 broad factors stood out as the compilers of the report asked individuals from 156 countries to define what made them happy. The factors were GDP per capita, social support, healthy life expectancy, social freedom, generosity, and absence of corruption. And the winner was Finland. The Arctic country rose from last year's 5th place to the top and is followed by regional neighbours Norway, Denmark, Iceland and Alpine Switzerland further south. Finland, like several of its Nordic neighbours, seems to have found a recipe for happiness.
I think everything in the society is set up for people to be successful, starting with university and transportation that works really well. We have a lot of snow, but that doesn't seem to stop anyone in Finland. We don't even have snow days here. But I just see how well everything works, from medical, free healthcare for everyone, transportation that's really efficient, and really good schools that are free or very low charge to students and their families.
The Nordic countries are holding the lead, they're maintaining the lead because their countries are working. People have confidence in government. The social support systems, which are under stress in other places, are holding strong in Scandinavia. The United States keeps falling a bit. It declined from 14th rank last year to 18th this year, and I have a study showing some of the adverse trends in the U.S., but the Nordic countries, they're holding on to the top ranks.
Indeed, the United States came in at 18th, down from 14th place last year. So what can be making or breaking the America which wanted to be great again?
I'm personally really happy. I think what we've seen recently is just this incredible grassroots movement that has given me a lot of happiness and hope, from the Parkland students to even locally with Kentucky United We Stand and Take Back Cheapside. I'm excited to see where we're heading as a country.
My appreciation for and happiness in America has increased. You know, we tend to lose sight and take it for granted, the incredible privilege and opportunities that are part of our birthright. The freedom to pursue life, liberty, happiness, and the American dream on our own terms.
And what about India? Where does our big, bright and bubbly nation fit into this report? Unhappily enough, it's down 11 places to the 133rd place this year. So what do Indians make of this?
Everything about our country, the warmth, the people, the colors, the culture, the way we are generally hospitable. I love being in India and I love being an Indian.
I'm definitely happy in terms of the freedom.
I'm absolutely happy living in India. Health and life expectancy is much better in other countries.
If you see the younger generation, they're working for the material gains. Nobody wants to have happiness. Actually, they're only focusing on the money. They need money, money, money. That's all.
The compilers of the 6th World Happiness Report at the UN underline that it's a subjective study. Therefore, it leaves it up to each and every one of us to decide whether we're happy or not. Bureau Report, WION.
All right, let's go straight across now to Professor John Helliwell, who is a co-editor of that World Happiness Report, who's joining us on the broadcast. Professor, to begin with, how did you come up with the evaluation criteria? What many are asking is, how do you judge, how do you ascertain if a person is happy? What were the criteria used for that assessment?
The rankings are based to people's answers in every country to the simple question: think of your life as a whole, as a ladder, with the worst possible life as a 0 and the best as a 10. How would you rate your life today? And so the rankings are based entirely on that. It doesn't depend on our judgment or our choice of features or anything. The 6 factors are things we have found help to explain the differences between countries in their rankings, and our selection of those depend on what kind of data we have available, as well as what we know from the science of happiness about what supports people's judgments about their own life.
Interesting, Professor. What many also wonder is what, according to you, explains that India has dropped 11 places as compared to the previous year's report. What makes Indians unhappy, according to you?
Well, we found that relative to what people used to think, which was that the material standards of life, income and health, were the whole story, or almost all the story, we're finding the close-in social relationships that people have are of fundamental importance. The sense of trust they feel in the street, the sense of affection and cooperation and help they feel in their families, in their neighborhoods, in their workplaces. And of course, it extends to the broader society as well. But it's the close-in is very important, and so you can find quite big differences in life satisfaction among communities and within communities, even in the same country. And of course, you find very big differences from one country to another.
All right, Professor, also speaking a little bit now about India's neighbors. Pakistan ranks 75th on that report. China ranks 86th. Yet the perception of freedom in these countries isn't as good as in India. How do you explain that the study finds people in China and Pakistan happier?
The simple answer is we don't know enough about what's going on in India. India is an international community in a way in its own. It is many communities. Most Indian states are bigger than almost any country in the world in terms of population, and they differ a lot. We are trying, as around the world, to help international national statistical agencies and state level. There are a number of Indian states that are taking happiness very seriously and starting surveys within their states to find out how life is going in the state and see what they can do to improve it. If we had a big canvas of data for all of India, then we could dig deeper and find out in which parts of India is life especially good, and which communities are best, and then we'd have clear answers to the kind of question you rightly ask. If things are not as good generally, why is that?
And lastly, before we let you go, Professor, the United States also has dropped 4 places in this year's report as compared to last year's, and also 11 places from the first report in 2012. Your co-editor on that report, Dr. Jeffrey Sachs, mentions that even though the U.S. was getting richer, its people did not seem happier. How do you explain that?
In this year's chapter, he emphasized a health crisis which exists in the U.S. more than elsewhere. Obesity and opioids are an issue in many countries in terms of posing risk to health. And he noted that healthy life expectancy is actually dropping in the United States, which of course shouldn't happen in the presence of continual medical improvements in countries that should have good healthcare systems. So uncertainty about that is clearly part of it.